Keep my coffee up here. Keep everything next to me so I'm good to go. Mike Nunley getting real. We got Brandi McAlexander. How are you doing, Brandi? Things good?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You ready to have some fun?
Normal as ever. Yeah, totally. I'm excited. I was surprised Jill asked that you wanted me on your podcast. I'm like, of all the people, me, okay.
We're already having technical difficulty with the
internet's never going to be good enough.
No, the internet it gets spotty. So, are you there, Brandi? You're frozen on my computer.
You gotta love it.
Oh, I know it. I know. God, we were doing so good too, and then all of a sudden it just disappeared.
That's how it goes.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. We'll keep trying. We'll just keep going, rocking through it. That's all we can do. So Brandi, let's talk.
Yes.
Hey, we got so much that we're going to talk about. You know, we're going to talk about, first of all, law school, the bar, bar teachings, you know, some of your extracurricular activities that you've gotten involved in. And, I mean, there are so many different things that we're going to be able to touch on. So this is going to, you better, tighten our seatbelts and get ready to roll through Brandi's world. So first of all, let's talk about you. Give me a little background on you. You know, I know married. I know you've got 22 kids and 30 something dogs, and you're, fill me in. What's life?
What's life?
Yeah.
Oh, life is the same, not different. I'm mostly tutoring.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of students recently, not a lot of students coming into law school. And if they're coming into law school, then they kind of have a different outlook on things, which is interesting. It's a very different kind of world than when I started in 2015. I'm seeing a lot less drive from students. And I think it has a lot to do with the way they feel about the world around them. And that's kind of been one of the concerning things I've been trying to figure out and deal with recently. It's just, there's been such a change there in the students that we work with and the way they feel about things or the way they handle things. And, but we've contemplated. At first we were going to start a law school, and we were really working hard, and California changed all their laws. And we kind of tried to figure out how we were going to change so that we could better reflect those changes. And we found that there's a real, California is really special. And people don't understand that about California. There aren't very many states, I should say no states really, that allow you to go to an online unaccredited law school. And by unaccredited, I mean not ABA accredited. That's all I mean.
Okay.
Not ABA accredited. That can go to a not ABA accredited school, get a good education, and then sit for the bar exam at the end of the day. And California has the apprentice program, which is amazing. And it also has this online law school certification and uncertification process. And it is a one-of-a-kind thing. There are no other states that allow you to do that, just California. And is
that a good thing?
Oh, it very much so is, especially when you talk about access to justice. Oh, absolutely. Most minorities, especially out here in the Southwest, live in rural areas, and they don't have access to four-year colleges or even to community colleges for the most part. And then you look at a lot of minorities that can't afford to go to college. They can't afford, especially law school. Law school is very expensive. So California having this option really increases the number of minorities and basically just the people that don't generally get into the good old boys kind of clubs. It opens up, legal education for everyone, for women and minorities. And I mean, even people from other countries that are really trying to do their job, not just, and I know a lot of people are really like, they're just immigrants. Well, a lot of them actually interface with the American government from their side of wherever they're from. And so their legal education helps their country work better with our country. And the fact that California is one of the only states that allows that path, that shit, it kind of tears me personally, because I'm torn between, I don't like the bar exam. I don't like the way it's set up. I don't like 4 years of law school if you're in an uncredited. There's so many things I don't like, but I do like that they give you the option. So you kind of internally have to figure out, like, where's the line? Like, how far do I push? Because I don't want to push to the point where they're like, well, we're just going to get rid of the whole program.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Right? Because that would hurt everyone.
Let me back you up for a second, because you're talking about the online schools opening up the opportunities for people that may not have had the opportunity to go to school. Whether it's, economic, whether it is, location, but are we seeing an increase in minorities because of that? Or are we seeing an influx? Because, if it does help, that would be a great way to kind of level out the playing field a little bit and allow people that would not normally have had access to, to be able to go to law school.
I think it has. I mean, I don't have any hard facts or statistics for you. I can tell you that as of 2020, there was 1% of all barred attorneys were Native Americans. That's it. 1%. And it was actually less than 1%. They just had to give it a number. Yeah. And, I haven't seen any statistics. I know that the bar, the ABA specifically, has always had problems getting minorities or underprivileged individuals into the legal industry. I can tell you from my personal experience, our English is a second language students, right? And they're in law school and I work with them. And I have seen more of those people pass who I don't think would have been able to pass if we wouldn't have helped them. So I do think it has improved the numbers of people. But I also think that, inherent in the whole process itself, I don't want to talk about institutional racism and get us into a whole mess of bees here, but I really do feel like there is a certain level of problem inherent in these tests and in the way they set these things up. So even though you do have a lot of different people, not your normal average person that would go to law school who now has access to it going, but now the test is not geared to giving an equal pass rate. So you get a lot of people that pass through law school and get a Juris Doctorate, but then they hit the bar exam wall.
Right.
And that's where it creates a problem.
Well, let me ask this. Let's staying on the line of thinking with online schools, and are they starting to be recognized as quality schools? In comparison to some of the brick and mortar schools that are more recognized. Is online gaining ground there to where it's becoming an equal playing field? If you're going out, let me put it this way: if a person graduates from an online school and they're going to and they put out an application to get a job at a firm or with the government, wherever it is, and there is also people that have come out of recognized brick and mortar schools. Is there a prejudice there, or is it an equal playing field? How do you see that?
Well, I think it depends on what your end game is. If your end game is to just practice law, then you're going to be fine. Going to an online law school is fine. And I'll be honest with you, Concord, that's where I went to school, has really worked hard to build a platform or to go talk to the bar in different states, and has pushed really hard to allow students to sit for bars in other states, because we're all online, so we're all scattered. And that has improved a lot. of the reputation in the community of attorneys as far as online law schools go. And in California, ALU, Northwestern, Oak Brook, there's a handful of them that have very good reputations. It doesn't matter that they were online. Everyone knows they have really good reputations. But the fact of the matter will always remain that if you want to practice big law, right, if you want to go work for a big attorney's firm, if you want to, be an attorney from the devil's advocate, then you have to go to Harvard, or you have to go to Stanford, but most of the people that attend online law schools are generally 40 or older. They already have careers. They already have lives. They're professionals, and they've decided to go back to school to improve their career, or to take a higher step up in their career, or to do something different. And I think that when you're already established, right, like when you're 40 and you've been working at a job for the last 25 years, you're established there, you're a professional in your field, and then you go get an online law degree, all that does is improve your prospects, because you don't plan on ditching whatever you've done for the last 25 years and going into a whole new thing. You just plan on supplanting what you know with this law degree. And I think that's part of the reason also these online law schools have they have a good reputation, is because most of the people that are in them are going knowing fully well what it takes to have a career already. They're all already working somewhere.
Right. Yeah. And people that are going to law school, whether it's online or they decide they're going to go to, a university, it's a rigorous journey. And people that are working full time and also going to school, that's, I had a hard time believing when I heard the statistics for attrition with law school. It's astounding. I
think I started with like 300 in my class and I graduated with 13.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah. What do you see? What causes that? What are some of the factors that cause people that, because in order to go to law school, you got to put a lot of time, a lot of effort in the very beginning just to get accepted into law school. So to have taken that amount of time and put in that kind of effort and then be accepted into the club, so to speak, it takes a lot then for someone to say, okay, enough's enough, and to leave, and to have the numbers that you just said. That's, what causes it? What are some of the factors?
There's a lot of different factors that play into this. When you're talking about an online law school, I think the first factor that hits everyone right out of the gate, if they're not prepared for it, is it's not as easy as you think it's going to be. If you thought that before you signed up for law school or even contemplated law school, if you just thought it was going to be easy, it's not. And if you signed up for an online law school, which a lot of people do, thinking, oh, this will be easy because it's online, it's not. It is absolutely not. And I think that's the first big hurdle. I think that's where you lose a lot of people in the first year of law school, is just because it's online doesn't make it easy. It's still law school. Like it is literally still law school.
Well, it seems to me, and looking at it, that online for me would be more difficult, because I am a hands-on, got to see it, got to touch it kind of person. So if I'm sitting in front of somebody and I see their movements and I'm with other people, it's easier for me to be engaged. For me to sit online and really never meet anybody that you're in class with, that would be difficult.
Oh, yeah. Well, you don't have confirmation. That's the other thing about the online law school is, once you lose a lot of people in the first 6 months to, oh boy, this really is law school. I do have like 1,000 pages to read on week one, that's a shocker. But then, you get to the next step is because you don't have those people sitting next to you and because you don't know how everyone else in the class is doing. Usually when you attend school, you can look to your left and look to your right in a test and you see people sweating or freaking out, or you see people showing up to class dropping books, and you know the guy that answers all the questions, and you have an idea of where you stand in the class, you know? When you're at online law school, we have a saying, Mike, and I tell my students that your first year of law school is like going up a very steep cliff. It's like climbing up this steep cliff, and you just climb. You have no idea where you're going. You can't go down because it's really far. You just have to keep going up, and all you see is the sheer cliff face, and it looks like it's never going to end. And that's like the first semester of law school. Mm-hmm. And then the second part of law school, almost the whole second semester, you get to the top of the cliff, and you're in a jungle. And at least you're walking, at least you're not hanging on for dear life. You're not struggling to stay there, but now you're lost in a forest. You have no idea where you're going. You don't understand how you're supposed to get out of the forest. And it's that last week of school, literally a week, where we say, and that's when you walk into the field and things start making sense. But that's the problem, is a lot of students, because they don't have the guy sitting next to them, because they can't just say, hey, let's meet after class and review the material, or hey, let's get together this weekend and, let's do a study session. Because of that, they fall off the cliff and we lose them, where they get lost in the forest and never make it to the last year of law school. That first year really is hard. And, luckily they got rid of the baby bar, which was an impediment to a lot of students. But at the same time, I won't lie, I kind of felt like the baby bar was a good thing, because there are a lot of students who need it. They need that baby bar to ensure that they have the foundation that they need to move on to the other years of law school. And it sets a good stage for the kind of study that you need to do when you get to the bar.
Let's go back. Go back 1 second, because that's a topic in and by itself. When did they decide that you no longer had to take the baby bar?
2020.
And what prompted that? What was the what was the key factor in them all of a sudden, after all these years, that the baby bar is no longer purposeful?
Well, they found an alternative way to make money, right? That's where. So they decided to start accrediting schools themselves. And they changed their internal regulations to say that if your law school is accredited by the state of California, then you do not have to have your students sit for the baby bar exam. And so instead of where it used to be, and where it is in every state with a handful of exceptions, if you do not attend an ABA-approved law school, then you cannot sit for the bar exam. And so California was one of the few states that did allow non-ABA accredited students to sit for the bar. But they had this crazy list of schools, like they had this crazy category thing, right? Where we had unaccredited distance learning, unaccredited learning, correspondence learning, unaccredited correspondence learning. Like they had all these weird categories when they were all the same school, just online law schools. But what they decided to do is offer accreditation to those schools and say, if you get accredited by the state of California, then your students don't have to sit for the baby bar. And so now, of course, those places, they had to apply and they have to, go through paying to be accredited and all these different things. But now their students don't have to sit. And I'll be honest with you, I've been dealing with a lot of the students from some of these schools, and I don't think they're as qualified as they think they're going to be. So I hope they're keeping an eye on those bar passage rates in the future, because I think they're going to be really bad.
Well, isn't that how they will probably control it or police it? Because, okay, we're going to give you a pass and you don't have to take the baby bar. And for anybody that's listening that doesn't understand the process, is that the baby bar originally, after your first semester, you then had to take the baby bar in order to continue.
Your first year. You can't go on to year 2 until you pass. That used to be the rule. And you could only, so you had 3 sittings. So they had the sitting in, let's see, what was it, in June and October. Those are the only 2 times that the test was available. And so 1 year you had June sitting, October sitting. And then the next year you had the Jones sitting. If you didn't pass it in those 3 sittings, whether or not you didn't sit any of those sittings, then you couldn't even finish. You couldn't go through 2L. You had to go back and start over.
Start all over.
1L.
Yeah. So now for students that may not have been able to pass the baby bar to begin with, but now have been given a free pass where they don't even have to be tested on the baby bar, they'll still at some point in time going to be faced with the granddaddy, the big, the bar exam in and by itself. I look at it as the baby bar, while there's a lot riding on it because it was a need, you had to pass it in order to move on into your next year. But aside from that, it gave you a glimpse of what the bar was going to hold for you. And I think I think that's invaluable, because otherwise you're going into the bar basically blind. You can listen to people talk about, how many essays or, how many, multiple choice or whatever that is, going to be required out of you. But it's not the same as actually sitting through when you're sitting in an auditorium, and I don't even know, now they're still online, I guess, but when you're sitting in an auditorium and there's, 300 other people or more in this, and you're being proctored and they're on top of you, and you can't have water, and you can't have, more than 3 sheets of paper or 2 pencils or whatever it is that they're telling you. There's a lot of stress involved right there, because people now have got their 4 years done. They've got their Juris Doctorate. They've got
their student debt.
Yeah, they've got their student debt, and there's nothing they can do unless they get through this thing and they pass it. And yet they're going into it basically blind. So
it's a disservice to the students, to be honest with you, because once you hit bar prep, you realize your school doesn't teach you nearly all the things you need to learn to pass bar prep.
That's what I hear.
Bar prep is just prepping you for the bar.
Right.
You figure you go to these schools so that you get an education so that you can be an attorney when you're done. And then you realize you can't. You still have to take this other test. But the school that you just paid $120,000, $220,000 to attend didn't prepare you. So now you have to go pay $5,000 to the Barbary or Kaplan or whoever, so that they can tell you how to take a test. It's literally, and then you get into the real world and you practice law, and it's nothing like the test. So the California Bar has announced that they're going to be changing the format of the bar exam. And this will be the second time that they've done it since I've really even been involved in the process. I didn't start law school until 2015. And this will be the second time that they've changed the test in less than 10 years. It used to be the world's longest test. It used to be 3 days. And then they moved it to 2. And now they're talking about changing it all together so that it is a completely different format. And, that I understand that we want students to be capable, the whole reason for the season, that's what you ask. What's the point of this, right?
Correct.
And they say the point is to ensure that people don't get ripped off by their attorneys, so that they have educated, knowledgeable attorneys who can represent them and things like that. But you know what? The bar process doesn't do that at all. It doesn't ensure that you have a smart attorney. It doesn't ensure you have a good attorney. It doesn't ensure he's not crooked. It doesn't do any of those things, because the whole process is set up so that you're practicing malpractice the whole time. I would never in my life try to do any of the stuff I do that I had to do for law school or for the bar exam or the baby bar the way we do it, just sitting down in an hour and trying to go through someone's case. Oh boy, you'd be in so much trouble. So it's kind of like this false set of things. It's just a money-making scheme. That's what they teach us in law school, right? Regulations, statutes, fines, money-making scheme. And so it's really kind of sad to think that we are going through all these different versions of a money-making scheme, when at the end of the day, they just need to change the process. I think instead of having the baby bar, instead of having the bar exam, right now they have a program where if you didn't pass the bar, you can go work for a year under another attorney, right? Go work for them, get some real hands-on experience, and they'll let you do that without passing the bar. And then you can go try the bar. I don't know why they don't just make it go work for somebody for a year and then take your, tiny tests. It doesn't need to be a 3-day, a 2-day. It doesn't need to be like 8 hours and 8 essays. It just needs to be, are you competent? If you did a year worth of working with another attorney supervised, then are you competent? Because they are not telling a lot of people this, but there's a shortage of attorneys.
Right.
We are going the way of the dodo bird. Nobody wants to pay the kind of money it takes now to go to law school. They don't want to put the time in. And the state in which I live literally has 3 counties with 0 attorneys in them. So there's no access to justice in those 3 counties.
Well, also too, you have with COVID, you had a large number of attorneys that were close to retirement or could retire, and with COVID, they just pulled the plug and said, I'm done. I'm not going back. So it left a huge void for. Yep. But it still seems to me though that schools, while it's a moneymaker for them, you would think that they would be doing everything they possibly could to guarantee success, so that they could say, instead of I know a person that on her very first day of school went to the I don't know what they call, the first day when everybody shows up and they talk about the school and what to expect and,
orientation.
Orientation. There you go. That was the word I was looking for. And they spent more time telling them to look to the left, look to the right. The people that are sitting here are more than likely not going to be here at the end. That that it is like a 17% or something success rate at the and they from day one began promoting the idea, embedding the idea that you are going to fail.
Absolutely.
That there is no shame in failing. Go ahead and ring the bell. It's you can quit. And it would seem to me that a school that is, financially needing the people to attend would be taking a different approach and doing everything they can to make sure that their school had a higher success rate rather than the norm. And that doesn't seem like they do that, because everywhere along the way, they seem to throw in more and more roadblocks.
Well, that's the thing. Like, my husband, he's an Army vet, and he went through law school with me. He really did. He got a good law education. But he used to tell me, this is boot camp. You're doing 4 years of boot camp. Get ready for it. Yeah. That's what it is. And every year, it doesn't improve. I went into law school with a 3.89 GPA. I was so proud of myself. I was like, I got this. I got law school, whatever. Probably like every other type A law school person ever. And when I got to law school, first off, I didn't know I had to take the baby bar. So a lot of schools didn't tell us back in the day we would even have to take it. So I started law school with no clue about what that was. But then second off, I did not realize this, but the highest grade that we could get for the law until I think 3rd year of law school was a 75. That's it.
Was that real, or was that what they were telling you? That was real?
That's real.
Why? What's the point?
Because the law school's grade based on how well, and first year, this is your first year of law school, right? And I had no legal experience. They grade based on whether you would pass the baby bar. So in that first year, they looked at what you were writing and said, would this essay pass the baby bar? And what grade would you get on the baby bar if this was an essay? And so everybody knows, I tell you, I've been tutoring for 6 years now. I've only had one student ever get a 100, and I won. And I think that was an error. But they're generally 65, 70s, nothing higher than a 75. So you take all these brand new type A, high high functioning, aggressive people. And then you hit them a little bit. Every time they have to test, you just beat them a little bit. No matter how great you did, you get a 60. In our heads, we're like 60 is failing. If that was my kid, I'd be like, you're doing summer school.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that's normal.
I guess I don't understand, the concept. The best thing that I have that I can compare it to is going through a police academy. And the police academy was set up for the first 3 months, for sure, maybe a little bit longer, of trying to get you to quit, doing everything they possibly could, because there was a reason for that with them. It's that if you can't take the pressure, if you can't take the heat, if you can't take the academics, if you can't take the physical agility, if you can't take somebody, 2 inches from your face screaming with a red face and, spitting on you, because they're wildly screaming and talk. If you can't take that in a controlled environment, you're not going to be able to take it out on the street. So there was a purpose for it, but I don't see the purpose with law school. And especially because if somebody is looking to go to law school and they're smart enough to go to law school, they're going to do research on law schools. And they're going to say, okay, what is their success rate? And then their success rate is all built into the bar exam. How they judge their success is what percentage of students that graduated and took the bar passed the bar. Well, let's back it up. And how many students graduated, first of all, versus how many students, started? That to me would be a better indicator is this a school I want to go to? Is this a school that's going to support me? Is this a school that's going to motivate me? Or is this a school to do everything they possibly can to fail me?
Yeah. And that's 100% correct. They create, the first year, they usually have 300 students. I mean, some schools like
we're good to go?
We're good to go.
Okay, we're back after our little technical break there. So what we were talking about was the attrition rate and why the schools are okay with it. Almost in a very strange, odd way, almost promoting it. To where they almost seem as though they enjoy seeing people not make it, not passing, not getting their Juris Doctorate.
Well, that's the thing, and a lot of us, it just depends on where you go to school, but I can tell you that they, the reason why law school is the way it is because they have to change the way you think. They really do. They have to change the way people think, and they have to weed out. I don't want to say quitters because people aren't really quitters, but I will tell you that I am the queen of failure. That is what I am. I am the queen of failure. If anyone can fail, it's me, and get back up and just keep going. And I don't know if that's necessarily the best way or if they do that because you're going to fail a lot. I mean, like, you're not going to win 100% of your cases. You're not going to be 100% effective. I don't think that necessarily they need to teach us so hard how to fail so well, but I think that they do that because they want to make sure that we're the type A people that are just going to keep going, keep trying, find something different. Because one of the things that really stood out to me in law school was when they tell you, if you want to take a case after you graduate from the bar and say it's maritime law and you've never done maritime law before, then you can. It's just your responsibility to ensure that you do the research as the attorney, look up the law, get educated. And so I think that by ensuring that we're great at failure, they think that they are ensuring that we are going to not let anything stop us to ensure justice for our client. But that's not how it turns out at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it just turns into a beatdown fest where most of us, I find that most people that get out of an online law school, like most of them that make it out alive, they find a group of people. They find friends. They find help. They find collectives. And the school, like I can talk from personal experience, they don't want you to talk to other individuals when you're on online law school. Like they're terrified someone's going to cheat and oh my. But I mean, we've already discussed, you have the bar, you have the baby bar, you have tests, like you can't cheat through those, they're going to catch you. But most people that actually make it through at the end of the day, they reach out and they do, they go look for people to help them. They don't just try to do it alone. I think that people that sit at their offices and try to handle all of it on loan have the failure, one failure after another. Like we have a saying, you haven't been in law school yet till you've cried. It's not law school unless you're crying, and that's the truth of the matter. Is it's almost like a rite of passage in law school that you've sat down in your first year and were writing an essay and just burst into tears because you had no idea what you were doing. And that was it. Well, but you have to be able to bring yourself back from the dead, almost from your own emotional what just happened, and carry on, like sally forth.
Well, and you're absolutely right too, because it seems like they do everything they can to, demoralize you, take the drive out of you, and if you do that often enough, human nature is they're going to start believing that they're not good enough. They're going to start believing that they're a failure. They're going to start believing that, you know what, this is too hard. And how many really good attorneys were pushed out just because they were told too often, maybe one time too often, that you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You don't have what it takes. Well, they're not coming out and saying that to you. They're doing everything they can to make you believe it. Second guess yourself. Question your motives. One of the things that I have told people that I know that are in law school is trust yourself. Trust yourself, because
yes.
you know, if your mind is telling you this is the direction, follow it, because somewhere along the line, you have it in the back of your head, something that you learn that's saying, go this direction, or this is the right answer. Don't second guess, because it seems like the times that I have heard people second guessing in law school, they went back and changed it and they were wrong. And they should have left it. They should have left it the way that they were. Just trust yourself. And And so when you're at a school that is constantly reminding you that you are not good enough, you don't know enough, you're not going to have the confidence, you're not going to have the self-esteem, and you're not going to listen to yourself. And if there's one thing I were to say, and I've never been to law school, so I am basically talking about through life experience and not law school experience. You got to trust yourself, because like anything else in the world, anything else in life, if you don't trust yourself, you're already lost.
Oh yeah, I can't tell you. Once you start. Like I've started working with some of these attorneys, once you graduate law school, that's what they expect you to do, go handle cases and work, right? And from the online law school community, one thing, not even just online law schools, because this goes for brick and mortar people too, because I've worked with them, is once we graduate, we all have imposter syndrome. Every single one of us has imposter syndrome. And we don't believe we can do it. We don't think we're good enough. We don't, some people worry, like, should I tell them I went to an online law school? Like, we kind of tiptoe around and we're very unsure about ourselves. And we kind of come together as conglomerates of people. And, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we are at an online law school. We don't get, even if you're doing a brick and mortar school, you go in and your teacher makes you feel like crap, but you show up the next class and the teacher's like, good job, you got that one right. When you're at an online law school, you never get the good job, you got that one right. All you get is a grade and one word, conclusory. Like, I think that my feedback for 4 years was conclusory. Literally for 4 years, the only feedback I received over and over, conclusory, wrong rule statement, and it's not like, if you would move this little thing here and put a comma and maybe change this. No, they're just like, this is your grade, conclusory, figure it out yourself. But that might also be part of why our online law schools have good reputations. And why they do that is why they're so mean to us, so that we learn to be great failures, is so that we can overcome that feeling of being an imposter later. Once we're done.
Don't you think, though, that there's a better way to go about it? Because, again, I have to go back to, I as a business person, I look at law school as a business. And you're not a student. You're a customer. And I'm paying you. I'm paying you to go to your school. Help me here. Help me out. Give me what I need. Don't beat me down. Don't tell me I can't do it. Don't be negative in your thought process with me. If I don't understand, make sure that there is some help somewhere that I can go to get it repaired, get it fixed, put me on the right track. But they don't. I mean, it's the strangest business model ever. Because if it's like with you, if you started out with 300 customers, but at the end of the 4 years, you only had 13 customers left, that is monumental failure.
You'd be firing your customer service guy.
Yeah, I mean, what business is going to survive where you start out with 300 and 4 years later you have 13? You're not going to be in business. And yet somehow or another,
that's where they make their money. It's that first year law school. That's where they make their money.
Explain it.
Oh, they're going to come for me. So the first year, well, the way it used to work, and I can tell you because I wanted to put my own law school together because I ran the numbers, is the first year, because all of these online schools there was a stop, right? All students had to pass the baby bar. So everyone came to an official halt. That's why they would have 500, 600 students in 1L. They made their money off 1L. Because if you didn't pass in 3 tries, you had to go back to retake 1L, right?
Right.
Can't go forward. Just cycle back. And there are a lot of students that take 1L 2 times. Some of them took it 3 times, just trying to get past that baby bar. I worked with a student who took the baby bar like 30 times once.
What?
She'd been doing it for 10 years, just trying to pass that. But what they create is this little backfeed loop of 1Ls. That just keep reapplying, resitting. And what they don't tell you is a lot of these schools also partner up with bar prep. So they get a little bit of a change at the end of the day on bar prep too.
Yeah, that's something we haven't even gotten into yet. But
but they cycle these 1Ls, right? And if you're one of the few that actually successfully, because remember, law schools are not measured by their 1L pass rate.
No.
They're not measured there. They're measured at the end of the day. So we don't care how many of those 1Ls cycle in and out over and over and over and over and over. You could get 1 year's worth of tuition 3 times from the same student. Just keep cycling them through that 1L, right? But now that we've got and that's where you make your money. You make all your money on that first group of students because they're going to have to keep going through it over and over. And some schools try really hard. Like I can say honestly, my school tried really hard to get 1Ls through. A lot of schools don't try because they don't care about even trying to pretend that they're not just raking in money on those 1Ls. They can't pass the baby bar because they don't prep them to pass it. And they just keep collecting that money. And so that was previously, and that is how some of the online schools right now still operate. Just recycle them. Whatever, it's not our school's fault, that's your fault. Now that they've changed the regulations, they're going to be looking at that end stage graduation rate. And I don't think it's really going to change anything. I think you're still going to have students that just get cycled over and over and over and over and over and over just for the money. They don't have any goals on, the ABA has regulations right now currently in its accreditation standards that say your law school has to have a certain graduation. You have to pass the bar. So much of your sitting population has to graduate. And for the last, I don't know, something like 10 years, they didn't enforce that. Zero enforcement for any brick and mortar ABA accredited school. And as online law schools started getting more popular and coming up behind them, we started banging on the table saying, hey, you won't even accredit our school? And we've got great graduation rates, but you're not making these other law schools follow your rules. And you're the ABA. We can't sit for the bar because you say we can't, but you're not following your own rules. And that's when we started seeing a lot of law schools shut down in 2018, 2019. And they're still supposed to be shutting down those schools that haven't been complying with the ABA guidelines. And so I'm really interested to see how many schools are going to be left at the end of the day, because in California, they never have an 80% pass rate. The California bar exam does not have an 80% pass rate. Never. Maybe once in history, maybe twice, but it doesn't hit 80. So is the ABA going to close down all the law schools in California? What are they going to do? Because that's their own guidelines.
So 80% pass rate at the bar? Is that what I'm hearing? So yeah. And they don't reach that. What would you say would be the normal pass rate for the bar, California bar?
I would probably put it at 40%. I think this last sitting was like 67. It was astronomically high. Everyone was shocked it was so high, honestly. And I think that's at 76. I think it was 76 or 67. I'm dyslexic, so it's one of those numbers. But I mean, we're sitting at 40% on average, like 46, 43, 38, like in that little area. That's nowhere near 80%. Like you put this in a business perspective, right? If you're telling people that go to law schools that at the end of the day, after $200,000 in law school debt and all the books and all the other stuff, right, that you have a 38% chance of actually finishing this process, I don't think anybody would want to take those odds.
No,
like I'm not doing it, you know.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Okay, so we're looking at a 38% pass rate or a 40% pass rate or whatever. It's under 50%. So the odds kind of suck. So what school? What does a school hold as their responsibility for getting them through? Because what you were saying earlier, and we haven't begun to even talk about bar tutoring, and the school doesn't seem to be prepping them to pass the bar, and yet their accreditation is tied into how many of their students actually pass the bar. Doesn't it seem, there's a big disconnect someplace. And again, this is coming from a guy that, honest to God, I'm just learning this as I go. But it's just as a business platform, it doesn't seem to make sense whatsoever. Is it because they just don't want that many attorneys at one time to become attorneys? Are they trying to stretch out the number of attorneys that are available at any given time?
I don't know. I can give you the answer I have on a good day and the answer on a bad day. There's two different, it is so bipolar, the whole thing, because you go through law school, you're like, okay, I'm learning the rules, right? I'm learning the rules of the game. Mm-hmm. I want to win Monopoly every time, so teach me the rules. That's why we go. And then you watch them play the game, and they don't even follow their own rules. It's a do as I say, not as I do situation, where you write my essay the way I told you to because I'm your professor. I don't care how you're going to write it on the bar, but you write it this way for me. Okay, when I work with students, I have to tell them this is the way you're going to write it on the bar, but don't write it like that for your teacher. If your teacher wants it this way, we're going to do it this way. And even in the accreditation standards, it says that teachers can't be punished for their ideas, their legal ideas, right? We want them to have free discussion. But at the same time, your obligation is to get us ready for the bar exam, not play games with us. And online law schools, they all have 4 years instead of 3. Your standard brick and mortar law school is 3 years. That's it. 3 and you're done. And I think most people in online law schools, we put up with a bunch of crap. Like, I hate to say it like that, but we put up with a lot of crap because we get to the 4th year and we're like, okay, this is it. This is when they're going to tell us how to pass the bar. We've got a year. We've done all the hard stuff. We've studied all the materials that are going to be on the bar. Now we've got a year. And you get there and they're like, have some busy work because you need to buy our bar prep program so we get 10% of what they sold it to you for. And so what you see, and in my experience, is the farther past one you get, the less they care about you, honestly, as a student, and the less help they give you. Like, they really just, and that's because they don't make any money on those years. I mean, if you think about it, you go from 500 students in the first year, that's a lot of revenue, to 13 in year 4. How much of your resources at a school do you really put in that 4th year? Because you know those people are about to leave. There's 13 of them. And you've got to hire a teacher. Are you going to hire one teacher per subject? Or are you going to try to find like a halfy teacher that's not really that good, that can finish off some of this stuff? And that's kind of the feeling I think a lot of us get is, and it doesn't, the real problem with it, Mike, is if they followed their own rules, then the system probably would work. But because they don't enforce those bar pass rates, and then on a bad day, my answer is, well, they don't care. The California bar doesn't care. They really just want to make money. It's just a money-making scheme on everybody's end. And because the more you sit for the bar, that's what, $1,000, like twice a year, $2,000 a year that they know they're going to get out of you every time they fail you. And so the fact that the ABA isn't holding law schools accountable. I'm waiting to see if California is going to hold its accredited law schools accountable, but I won't hold my breath on it. I mean, I won't lie. I do think that the people that graduate get good educations. I think we're smart people. I think we're tough people. I think we can fail like the best of them, but I don't think it's fair. And I think the whole deck is stacked against them every time.
So you said something that, surprised me, that brick and mortar schools have a 3-year commitment and you graduate. So why does online go for that 4th year? Are they not? Because it seems to me the way that the online is that you have a class and you have a single class and it runs for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever that class runs. And it's everything about that particular class is thrown at you. Where brick and mortar, you take 2 or 3 classes, but it's stretched out over a period of a whole semester. And it seems like you are getting the same number of classes per year, but what is the extra stuff? What is that about? Why?
This is this fallacy that I hope COVID ended, right? Mm-hmm. But, the ABA's reasoning for not accrediting online law schools is because you don't get the same kind of education. If you can't see somebody, if you're not face-to-face in person, the student won't learn. They won't learn. In California, and I guess the online law schools, I'm not sure where it came from or who made the decision. Oh, yeah, you're right. These crazy online law school students can't let them get away with 3 years. No, they might find a way to just graduate and sit for the bar. We got to give them a 4th year just to make sure. So, for a lot of us, it feels like punishment. I won't lie. 4th year of law school feels like torture. It feels like unnecessary torture.
So there is a prejudice towards online schools
from the ABA, and it's because the ABA will. So Mitchell Hamlin, for a little background, is the first brick and mortar school to be accredited to have a portion of its law program online. And the ABA said that as long as half of the classes were taught in person, then the other half could be taught online. And then surely that would be enough for your teachers to harass you to make sure you're actually learning the material, whatever. And then COVID hit and everybody went online. Even the ABA approved schools went online. And we had a huge passage rate at the bar, didn't we? So now that kind of thought, that reasoning and it wasn't the lawyers, it wasn't the profession, it wasn't the legal profession who was like, these online law students need an extra year. They're crazy. We can't trust them. It was the ABA who didn't want to accredit those schools because, they're snobs and they have a monopoly on it and it's a real problem and somebody needs to stop it. If the ABA wants to be a federal government organization and they want to accredit schools, go get them. But they shouldn't be a private organization that gets to determine who can and can't do certain things. But now that the ABA has allowed all these brick and mortars to teach their students full-time online, and they love these schools, Stanford, Harvard, all their big popular law schools got to go 100% online. They have no more excuses to hate on the online law schools because they just did 2 years all online, and the graduation rates and the bar pass rates went through the roof. So all of their nonsense is gone. They can't say that online is worse because students did better.
But an increase in pass rate on the bar, is that something that they really want? That's something I keep going back to and questioning. Do they really want a high pass rate on the bar, or are they trying to somehow keep those numbers down?
I think it's state specific, to be honest with you. I think if you look at certain states, because states pass their own graduation, like what the limit is on the bar and things like that. You've got the UBE, which is the Universal Bar Exam, which is done by a whole bunch of states. And then you have states like California who have their own thing. They're special. They don't want to share, And I think that it's up to the state. Like, I think the state sets the numbers. And California is known as having the hardest bar exam in the United States. New York is too. New York has the second hardest bar exam. But I'll just be real honest, and this is my opinions. Don't come for me later, California. But I think what it is because they give so many people the opportunity, right? They have the apprentice program. I don't know if there's any other state in the United States that has that. Honestly, I have not seen it. And because they allow non-accredited correspondence, distance, whatever schools, for you to go through law school, take the baby bar, and then possibly sit for the bar. I think they have a larger amount of students that sit every year. And because they have such a large group of students that sit, they're like, they'll try again next year. Mm-hmm. But we don't want to pass. I mean, if they have 5,000 people every year that are sitting for this, just because they're the only accessible state that does, and that kind of stands to reason they've got to make those pass rates a lot lower because they've got a bigger pool to ensure that the riffraff, or I don't want to call people that, but whatever it is kept out. Whereas if you have a state like New Mexico that only has 50 people, why not have a 90% pass rate?
Sounds like they need it.
But if California, well, New Mexico does, but that's the thing is California, and that's why their pass rate isn't so high, is they don't need that many attorneys. They don't need them, so they set the pass rate at 40.
So
the baby bar is a 20% pass rate. So
how do they control the pass rate? How do they, if you've got 2,000 people going in, do they have a preconceived idea? Okay, we're going to take 38%.
They don't tell us how they grade the bar exam. That's how they do it. They are not required by law. They've been taken to court multiple times, and they're not required to tell us how it's graded. So nobody actually knows. No one has any idea. And this is a real problem for a lot of people. If you don't know how this thing is graded, you don't know if essays are 50% and multiple choice is 50%, because you get 8 hours, 8 essays, ready, set, go, 1 hour, an hour an essay, and then you get 200 multiple choice, but you don't know what's weighted. And then you have a performance test added into that. So you have basically 3 sections, but they're not a third, a third, a third. They're not 50-50. They're not 25-25-50. We don't know. They don't tell us. We don't even know how many points we get for each correct multiple choice question. And they give you this formula, but this formula doesn't work. And they're not required, because it's considered trade secrets or something. They're not required to tell us. But all they're doing is ensuring that because they're not setting the expectation, they don't give us the expectation, we can't meet the expectation. So you see people who spend thousands of dollars trying to figure out what it is that they need to pass on the bar exam. And if you pass the bar exam, they don't even give you a score. So you don't even know if you did really good or 1 point bounced over the line. So a lot of people take this test over and over and over and over, not even knowing what they didn't do well on. And it's so smoke and mirrors, and it's so secretive. And I used to work with physicians. I was a hospital chief operations officer. I ran physician peer review sessions, which were 100% confidential, where they talk about other doctors committing malpractice, right? And the whole process to pass law school, get accredited, become an attorney is more secretive than those types of risk management meetings that I used to be in, talking about medical malpractice and negligence claims. Like, that's one of the things that I don't understand. And I think maybe they keep it like that to keep the government out of it, maybe. Like, if they can internally monitor and keep track of everything, the government, maybe they should. I've never been involved. Everything gets messed up. But there needs to be an aspect of transparency that happens with this. I mean, it really does. You think about this. I'm a mother of 7. I'm sick. And you've asked me to take $200,000 in student loans out. I think I deserve to know how to pass the test. I think I deserve to know what the expectations are on that test. I think I deserve that. I don't think I should have to pay $5,000 to somebody that I don't even know, that I haven't been working with for 4 years, to teach me that. And I don't think that there is any end game to correct it. And I don't think there has been an end game to correct it for a very long time. That's why only 1% of attorneys are Native Americans. I don't think there's been any attempt to correct this. I mean, women are still a minority. Any bit of ethnicity is still a minority. Like, if they wanted to fix it, these are the smartest people. Like, I consider them the smartest people around, unless you're talking about a rocket scientist or a doctor, right? Like, these are attorneys. Like, these are the smart people. And for 200 years since we've had the bar, we haven't managed to improve bar pass rates. You don't want to at that point.
Right.
You're not trying to.
Right. Well, so we've already established that the schools don't prepare you for the bar. So that now leaves open, okay, now if you want to pass the bar, am I getting this correct? That if you really want to pass the bar, you're going to have bar tutoring to teach you the bar exam, because what you learned in school isn't going to get you through the exam. It's kind of basically, again, I'll go back to law enforcement and going through a police academy. When I graduated the police academy and I went out onto the street, and you go through a whole another set of training where you have somebody that rides with you, and you're learning real life. The first thing that they tell you is forget everything that you learned in the academy. Is it kind of the same thing? Is it okay, we taught you how to write an essay, but we didn't teach you the right way to write an essay. We taught you about the rules of law, but we didn't really teach you the right rules of law. So now you got to go spend X number of dollars and get tutored for taking the bar. Oh
yeah. And the worst part about it, so this is the thing, if you sit for a UBE state, if you go to a law school in any state that has a UBE, I've talked to attorneys, they're like, you don't have to study. The UBE is so easy. Just once you're done, just sit down and take the test. It's all the stuff you were taught. Super easy. Mm-hmm. But California makes its own test. It doesn't use the UBE. So they could fix their own problem if they would go to the UBE. They could fix their own problem. They choose not to. And they choose to make it the hardest test in the nation on purpose. And I think because they make that choice, schools are like, whatever, you guys are going to go above and beyond. Well, then that forces all of us at the end of the day, when you graduate law school, you better have a bar prep scheduled. You better know where you're going. You better have your company. You better have your discount code. You better know your rep. Because the day you graduate law school, bar prep starts the next day. And most people only have 2.5 months to study for the bar exam. And they expect you in bar prep programs like Kaplan and Barbary to do 14 hours of study a day. And they have clocks and timers on their software that track you so that you can make sure you're doing 14 hours a day. And that is ridiculous.
So let me ask you this. What's their pass rate?
They don't tell us. They're the only game in town. They don't have to.
And is that a privately owned tutoring service?
Yep, they're the two biggest privately owned, and they're not really even tutoring services, right? Like, I want to clarify this because I know people are going to watch that haven't done this. Barbary is a program. It is a stack of books that you purchase and you can keep or send back when you're done. And it is a software on the computer that has millions of hours of videos and then a bank of essays that you can write those essays or multiple choice you can practice on. The one-on-one that you get is slim to nothing. And the feedback you get is like law school feedback. Uh-huh. Conclusory, that doesn't help. One word, conclusory. Like it is not helpful. It's just not helpful. It is not, like, I won't lie. Like I was like, oh, I got the money. I had to go get an Indian grant to pay for my $6,000 Barbary, thing. I was excited. My books came in. I'm like going through the books. I'm like, I'm going to own these for the rest of my life. Yay. I pull up my program. I'm looking at my program and I'm like, wait a minute. I can't see anything until there's only 3 months until the test. I just paid you guys $6,000. I don't get access to anything until 3 months. At the dot, 3 months. Ready, set, go. When month 3 hits, then it becomes available. And if you don't do 14 hours a day, you don't get all the material. And then the day of the test, it shuts down and you never have access again.
Wow.
Never. It's gone. You can keep your books, but all the other stuff is gone.
Wow. So
it's terrifying.
Well, it's like, can the powers to be, whoever they are, do anything more when we're talking about school, instruction, online versus brick and mortar, to bar? Can these people do anything more to guarantee failure from people? I mean, they've done everything they possibly. It appears.
Well, they've started doing more. They've started doing online. Now, when you take a test for your online law school, it's proctored. And so now there's something on your computer staring at you so that if you look away or a cat shows up or you drink a glass of water, now while you're in school, now you can fail while you're in school. Even though the whole time I was in law school, we were told the reason we don't have your test proctored is because there's no way you can cheat on a law school exam anyways. You can have all the posters and all the books in the world, but if you don't know the material, you cannot write the essay in an hour. You can't get those rule statements out. You can't get the analysis. You can't do it. It's impossible. So they have added another step to make it impossible for people to graduate by adding this proctor program that constantly goes down in the middle of an essay, has no tech support, that they don't take responsibility for. They're like, oh, that's not us. That's the tech program. That's the proctor program. You need to talk to them. So through this thing, even though it's kind of gotten better, we've opened online law schools, but we've put another roadblock now into people actually getting through law school by adding this proctor software on their computer, which doesn't work, which all it does is it interrupts the students. It stops their train of thought. It takes away our resources. Like, tell me a law school student who doesn't own highlighters, who doesn't have highlighters scattered around their house. And that's because we're pen and paper people. We learn from day one in law school. You print it out, you write it up, you highlight it, you underline, you circle. And now they want to take that away from students. Now they're like, oh, as if it's not hard enough yet, you don't get scratch paper. It is the equivalent of sending somebody to like space school, like space rocket school, right? You can tell how much math I do. Rocket space school. And being like, you don't get to use pencils in this school. Like, they just, it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And and it feels like that with everything that they do in law school. 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Again, why? What is the purpose behind this methodology? It doesn't make reasonable sense to a person that's in the real world, in the workplace, where businesses thrive on productivity, businesses thrive on customer service, businesses thrive on doing the right thing. What's the purpose behind all this? It's
they're a monopoly. They don't have competition. They can do whatever they want. Where are you going to go? If you I'm just a poor Indian on the res. That's all I am. I'm a poor Native American who lives on a reservation, and the reservation that I live on doesn't have a law school. We don't have a law school, so I can't go there. And the University of New Mexico is 3.5 hours the other way. There's no schools around here. What am I going to do? If California says stand on your head and weave a basket underwater to graduate, that's what I've got to do because they're the only state that gives me the option. Mm-hmm. So if California tells me you got to stand on your head, underwater, weave a basket, and write a contracts essay, well, the sad story is at the end of the day, I have to because there's no other option. I have no other option, like none. And that's where most people that are going to an online law school, we don't have, what are we going to do? Quit our jobs? We're mostly the primary breadwinners. Or what are we going to abandon our children? Move out of, there's just, they're not options for us. They're really not.
So let's take that. Let's run with that one for a second. Okay, so you don't have a choice. This is what it is. The bar exam is what the bar exam is. The law school is what the law school is. And then you've somehow managed to graduate and you have your Juris Doctorate. Now you're going to take the bar. What do you do? Are you back?
I'm here.
Oh, man. Oh, goodness. Hopefully we won't do that anymore, but we'll wait and see. If we do, at least you know it. So now, going back to the question. Okay, so you've done everything you're supposed to do. Now it's time for you to take the bar, but you also know you didn't learn enough to take the bar. You also know that $6,000 in 14 hours a day is out of the question. What's my option?
Well, most students at this point reach out, they get online, they start looking around. Some students try to find free materials. But that's the one thing that I want to say here for everyone to hear is the only downside I can see in an online law school opposed to a brick and mortar, from my personal experience, not having graduated brick and mortar, right? Graduating online, is that when you graduate, they abandon you. You're on your own. Don't hope to get any help from your school. Don't hope to get any assistance from them. Don't hope to get bar prep. Don't look to them for anything. They are not going to help you. They're busy with other people. You're done now. Your time is done and you're gone and you're like old garbage now. Out you go.
You're no longer a paying customer.
Yeah, you're no longer a paying customer. So you just GTFO. There's the door. Don't let it hit you, and it leaves a lot of people who are financially struggling. People that have a hard financial time. If you're a middle-aged person working a full-time job going to law school, chances are pretty high you're not just rolling in the dough.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it leaves them stranded. And so a lot of people they'll take it one time. And if they don't pass it that one time, then they just don't take it again. And they will continue their lives as JDs without being able to put Esquire at the end of the name. And they go into different types of positions. But when I was graduating law school, they told me, Barbary and Kaplan, pick one. Those are your options. If you don't, you'll fail. Good luck. Let us know how you did. And that's it. There's no assistance. And, part of the reason why I tutor is because I got ripped off my first year of law school by a tutor who was an attorney out of California. Recently found out he was disbarred. Go be surprised by that,
there
right?
You go.
And but he took me for $2,500 my first year of law school. He was going to be my baby bar tutor, and he sent me Barbary essays. He sent me 2 or 3 Barbary essays, talked to me once on the phone, and that was it. That was it. And this is what those bar prep programs do. They're like, okay, these are your options, Barbary or Kaplan. You ready to do 14 hours? If not, then you just go die. Like that's like their option. Like say goodbye. Like that's it. There's, and that's why my tutoring, the tutoring that I'm doing, I have started increasing it now to the point where we're doing 2 through 4L, so upper level classes and bar prep. And we're doing free classes because first off, this is the law. Mm-hmm. We all live under the law. We should know how the law works. Every American should have access to justice, and they should have access to be able to represent themselves. It shouldn't be, shouldn't be a good old boys club. It shouldn't be something that only the rich and the magnificent can get into. But what's even worse is when they give us these options, like they do for online law schools, and then they kind of like pull the rug out from underneath us by then going, okay, you made it this far. Now you got to find $6,000. And that doesn't take into account that they don't tell you once you pass the bar, there's still the moral character, there's still the MPRE, there's still getting your malpractice insurance, depending on what state you're in, there's signing in for the bar, there's applying for the federal bar. There's so much money in every step and so much of your life. Like, I remember I graduated in December of 2019. December of 2019, when the world was great and we get to the mall and we were getting ready for Christmas and I was going to sit in February and I didn't feel like I had enough time, but I was ready. I was going to do this, right? And then COVID hit. And I called the bar and I said, my doctor says I cannot get COVID. I have a genetic disease. Can I have my money back? And they said, no. If you're in a position financially where you have just gone $200,000 into law school debt, you're raising a family, you're in the middle of your career, you can't afford $6,000 twice a freaking year until magically you pass. Like that's the part they don't tell you.
Right.
Like that is just, it's impossible. And the feeling of just loneliness and failure that you have is huge. It's huge. And that's why that's why I started doing this, is because I hated the way I felt. Hated it. I didn't think it was fair. My grandma was right. Brandi, you're going to make the world fair. Well, yeah, that's my point. I'll make the world fair. And so that's why I started my baby book group and my law school, online law school stuff, LALawInstitute.org, is because people need people. Nobody's in our corner in the online law school game. You may have a teacher you like, but she may only like you one email. She's got a million other students and she's got a job, right? Once you graduate, you're done. They don't care. Once you graduate 1L, if you have to sit for the baby bar, they might give you a weekend review, but they're done. It's up to you. They just walk away from you. And there's so many big, important areas in the process of graduating law school where good people that would be amazing attorneys, that have the best at heart, who are intelligent and smart and go-getters, we lose them. We lose them, and they don't care. And they don't care because they don't have to care, because they're the only game in town. And it's disgusting and it's sick. And that's why I do what I do, why I teach so many free classes, and why I provide so much free resources. And it's just because it's not fair.
Well, it also seems like in today's world, without going down that slippery slope of, everything being equal, you would think that money being the driving force behind everything that we're talking about, there's a lot of lower income, very smart, very gifted people that are going to be boxed out because they can't afford to play the game. You know, it would seem like somewhere somebody's going to stand up and say, wait a minute, this no longer fits. This no longer fits the new social outlook and attitude that we are trying to change. They can't say, on one hand, you can't have a school speaking liberally about social items and then turn around and not support lower income people to better themselves and make life better and enhance all of our lives, because you never know that one person, because they're brilliant and they have an aptitude for law or medicine or whatever that it is, but is being locked out because they don't have the money. It seems like something has to change.
Oh, yeah. And, at the end of the day, if they would just be truthful about the process, right, and the whole thing, if they would allow these students who don't have the finances, if they would give them an avenue in, right, that would make the legal industry so much better. Because if you have an ESL student, if you have somebody from Taiwan who's willing to put in the work and do the time, but of course they're an immigrant, they don't have a lot of money, they can't afford, but they're doing the work, they've learned the language, that's hard enough, right? They learned American, they learned English, now they went through law school, putting in the work. Don't you think that's going to save attorneys from having to look at a client and say, I want to represent you, you're in my wheelhouse, I just don't understand you that great, and so I'm not going to take you as a client, because that could hamper my success rate, especially if I'm only, if I'm going to take clients on a pro bono basis, or if I'm going to take clients on a contingency basis and they don't speak great English, I probably don't want to take them, because they're not going to be very helpful and I'm not going to understand them. There's not a lot of attorneys in America who speak Korean or Japanese or any other language other than English. Those people are in our country, and those people need attorneys too. And the rest of us that don't speak the language, once we get past the bar and we're barred and we're practicing, we don't want to take a client that we can't really understand, because that means we probably won't be able to represent them that great. And it's a malpractice chance. It might be, you never know how that turns out. So what happens? They never get attorneys. And then they get stuck standing in line, waiting for a public defender. It costs the taxpayers money. I mean, at the end of the day, if they would just acknowledge that people don't learn the same ways, they don't educate the same. Some people aren't good at tests. Doesn't make them bad. Doesn't make them less smart, just makes them bad at testing. That you would make the legal industry more transparent. And I'm going to wade in right here so you can cut this one out. But with the way the Supreme Court has looked recently, and the vision of impropriety that they are portraying to the rest of the legal industry, if there's one thing we need more in the legal industry right now, that's transparency. We need transparency and access, and we need to go back to being the people that upholded the Constitution, the defenders of justice, the people that looked at the right and the wrong of the issue, and the people that balanced issues, right? Remedies class people, balanced issues, instead of being part of the problem. And right now, the legal industry is sitting at home with its head in the sand, and nobody's saying anything. The FedSoc isn't saying anything. The CONSOC isn't saying anything. The ABA isn't saying anything. Nobody's saying anything. And it's because it's all surrounds, it's money. It all has to do with money. Nobody wants to lose the money they have. But if we could just do what we're supposed to do what our industry is supposed to do, and look at things very objectively, not subjectively, but objectively, and ask ourselves, what is our goal and how do we accomplish it? Then what we would do is actually improve the system instead of making it better. We would create more attorneys who could better help those people that nobody wants to help those people right now. There are tons of people that are taking public defenders, the People's Legal Services. These are tax-funded legal services that are so busy that they have waiting lines. That's, here in my town, we have a People's Legal Service, and it's first come, first served, doors open at 5, ready, set, go. People show up at 3 a.m. the day before because they only handle the first 10 people through the door and the rest of you are SOL. There are so many Americans right now that need attorneys, especially after COVID. Their loved ones have died. They have estates that they need to probate. People have been sick. They have healthcare bills that they probably shouldn't have to pay, because you shouldn't have to pay $150 for a single aspirin. But there's no attorneys to represent these people. And there's no attorneys because the small group that controls it in the ABA wants to keep the money for themselves. And they all want to keep it in this tiny little thing, and they don't want to share. They don't want to let it go and make it good and make it big and make it encompassing and do exactly what the purpose of it was when we started, which was to ensure that the rules of the land were acknowledged and that people were following those, and that social contract people talk about so often, that social contract, those negligence rules, that duty, that the duty was enforced. And I think a lot of the things that we're seeing in society right now, with people acting crazy, going out and shooting up schools, shooting up supermarkets, protesting in front of Supreme Court justices' houses. Like, I don't think that's okay. But you know what? They didn't make it okay, so now they got to deal with it. But all this could be fixed if we would just stop and follow the rules that we were taught in law school. If we followed the Constitution and its principles, and we actually did what we were supposed to do. The whole point of having law is to ensure justice and liberty and fairness and freedom. And if we're not doing our jobs, if the industry itself isn't doing its jobs, and that starts at law schools, they're not doing that job, then we start seeing people shooting up supermarkets because they don't feel the system's fair. If you think Ginny Thomas is out there protesting the right to choose, and then her husband rules on a Roe versus Wade overruling, don't you think that people are like, the system's rigged, I quit. Whatever, it's just whoever gets elected. We need to take the legal industry back, and we need to make it an honest field again. I know people have joked for years that liars were full of liars, and there's some pretty funny jokes, but for the most part, we have been the defenders of justice. We take the jokes and we laugh at them, but we can't laugh anymore. You just can't laugh at it because it just got so out of control. No one stopped it. And I don't know how to correct the problem, but I do know that there is a lot of damn good people that come out of online law schools who have been trudging forward, trying to stop it, trying to fix things, trying to make it the way it's supposed to be. And you don't see that same fervor coming out of the brick and mortar law schools.
So
that's my soapbox. I'm done.
So let's dive into that just a little bit, because right now what we're seeing in society, in the world, is a portion of the society that is looking to override and change Constitution, where they're looking at wanting to let's just take censorship, where you have both sides of that, to where you have people that are saying, no, we need more censorship, we need more control, because we're hearing too much of this side or this side, and not choosing a side, but just saying both sides are saying we're hearing too much of that side, so they need to be silenced, which then starts walking heavily on our constitutional rights to free speech. So where do you draw that line? Where do you say we need to uphold the Constitution as it is? And yet both sides are saying, no, we can't in this particular, because once you start giving up your rights, you're never going to get them back. Let's be honest with that one. So
oh, yeah.
What happens in our world when citizens are basically saying, no, I'll give up my rights because at least I don't have to listen to this one?
I can't imagine anybody would ever want to give up their right. I won't lie. I think a lot of our problem is the internet. I don't think it's the speech or the content on the internet. I think it is how we as adults, I'm not blaming children. I think it's we as adults. Did we all forget that if you don't like something, you ignore it? Did we all forget growing up when we would see Nazis in like downtown and they'd have 3 Nazis doing a parade? Your parents would look at you and be like, don't give them any attention. They don't need any attention because that's for their cause. Don't give them attention, right? We learned these things. But as adults, the internet came around and we forgot. We all became jerks. And we all had anonymity to act like jerks and to say jerky things. And it's kind of fun, right? Because we can watch it on TV and we can see Anonymous because they're online and they can do this stuff, right? But this is less about freedom of speech and more about we need to behave ourselves like adults and stop acting like small, petty children, really. Because the freedom of speech, we have always, and this sounds horrible, right? But I am like, yes, for Nazi speech. You go be a Nazi, whatever you want, right? That's your freedom of speech. If you want to say Nazi things, whatever. Well, but you don't have the right for hate speech or the speech that incites riots. That's in the Constitution. I'm all about that. You quash that.
Yeah, you have.
But Nazis have always been able to be Nazis.
Yeah, if you're going to support our right of free speech, you have to support viewpoints that you don't agree with. That is all part of the package. And I'm all for that. It's I may not like hearing it, but that's as much their right to say as it would be my right to voice my opinion on the opposite side. They may not want to hear that. So, but yeah, that's all part of it. You and I think what's happening is we are trying to control other people, not just the speech, not just the rhetoric, but we're trying to control the people themselves and saying, no, you don't get to do that. You don't get to act that way. No, you can't say that online. I think somehow, some way,
people forgot how to mind their own damn business.
Well, absolutely, and I think that more importantly, people are hearing things on the internet, and they're not hearing both sides. My view on having an opinion is great. Have an opinion. As long as your opinion has basis, and the only way you can create a basis for your opinion is be open to listening to both sides of the speech, and then you put it all together. But when you're only willing to listen to one side, and that one side is comfortable for you to hear and listen to, and you agree with it, and so you're getting more points of your opinion being validated, that's not how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be able to listen to both sides. I'm more of a centralist. I don't agree with what they're saying over here on the far left. But I can also say I don't agree with what they're saying over here on the far right either. And there's somewhere in the middle where 90% of all of us reside that lies the truth. But going back to what you were saying is acting like adults. Well, acting like an adult means I'm taking care of my responsibilities and I'm getting up and I'm going to work every day. Acting like an adult means I am taking care and raising a family every day. Taking care of whoever it is, my family that may be ill, washing the car, taking kids to soccer, taking kids whatever that it is. And I'm sorry, at the end of the day, I don't have time to be on the left or be on the right. I don't have time to sit down on my Instagram and expound on my far left or far right views. I don't have the time. The only time I really am posting anything on Instagram if it has something to do with the podcast. So that way there, it gets the point out. It's my way of expressing myself. But what we're listening to are people that have a very jaded view of their position, and they're willing to give it up to control the people across the table. And very dangerous for the 90% of us that are in the middle.
Oh, yeah. And, that's the thing. Like, a lot of these problems that we're facing as a society right now come down to, do you watch Fox or CNN?
Yeah.
Right? Like, which news stories do you watch? But we can fix this. Our country can fix this. And you know what? CNN's not talking about it. Fox isn't talking about it. You know how we fix it? We just pass the Truth in Reporting Act. We go back to how it was in the 70s, how it was in the 80s, when they were supposed to report on the news and not report on their feelings or what they think or their intuitions, and then present it as news. Yeah. I watch CNN a lot, and I hate CNN, but I watch it because I can't handle the anger and the aggression that comes out of Fox. That's it. So instead of watching them, I watch individual podcasts of people who watch Fox. Isn't that horrible? Like, I watch like redneck YouTube channels, that's what they're called, where they're just good old country boys telling me what's happening in their state, what their representatives are doing. I watch a lot of C-SPAN, but I am so far left as a liberal, it's not even funny. I'm like, my daughter is the youngest communist in the American Communist Party. And that's okay, because I was a Republican before I went so far left that it wasn't even funny. I was a Republican, and I was a Republican for many, many years. Now I'm not even registered as a party because I don't know what I am. But I think part of our problem is nobody tells us the truth. And we feel like a lot of things are do what I say, not what I do. We watch the news. We watch our senators commit, all these stock trading deals and making millions. I watched Nancy Pelosi come out like a fat rat on her, stock trading stuff, on her insider deals. No one does anything. Marjorie Taylor Greene, no one does anything. Like, it has become not news. It is not news. It is an incite. It is a platform to incite and to push your own agenda.
Well, it's also, too, my view is that it is also a site to detract us
from what's happening,
from seeing and discussing what's really going on. And, as soon as one area, it's like the Ukraine, once that wasn't the news anymore, it's an ongoing war, things are happening over there, it's horrible, I don't agree with it, that's my view, that's my opinion, but it's horrible, but we're not hearing as much about it now. So what happens? Okay,
they're up to shenanigans right now. That's why they're like, look at Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Pay attention to Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
And then all of a sudden that starts to die out. And all of a sudden, let's go. What do we do now? So they're going to reach into their bag of Ultra. Let's throw COVID back out there. COVID's starting to come back again. We're going to talk about that. That's always a good scare.
Well, COVID never went away.
No,
it was just boring. It wasn't getting the views it used to.
Exactly right. So it's kind of a shell game. And again, I am probably your extreme left. I'm probably more, I don't want to say extreme right, but I'm more right than I am left. But somewhere I'm more centralized. It's
but
like
we all end up in the middle because we just want things to work. We don't want to fight. We don't want to I don't want to protest. No. I am so sick and tired of protesting. Like, I was standing out there on the Roe v. Wade and someone had a sign that said, I've been holding this for 50 years. I'm like, can we just get it over with? We said it was good. Let's move. Let's keep going. Let's do something for infrastructure. Let's do something for the economy. Let's do something about schools or children. Or let's make us the smartest country in the world.
Well, let's do something. Yeah, let's do something that is going to really make a difference. We can talk about, blacks and the Hispanics and the Asian and let's do something. Let's do something. Don't do it by pointing a finger at me. A white middle-class man had absolutely nothing at all to do with whatever it is that you're going through, because I agree you're going through something. Let's fix it. Let's fix it. It's not just protest about it. Let's not just talk about it. Let's not just, stir the pot a little bit more. Let's fix it. I want to fix it. I want to fix it. I want to see, like we were talking about, I want to see more people that are not financially in good positions to go to school. I want to see them go to school. I mean, if they really have the aptitude to go to school and do it, I want to see it. If they have the aptitude to go to school and be a doctor, I want to see it. Or a lawyer, I want to see it. Or a business person, I want to see it. I don't want to see people held back because they are not in the right socioeconomic group. Let's fix it. But we're not fixing these things. We're talking about it, and it's becoming rhetoric.
We're yelling at each other.
Yeah, if you don't agree with me, we're gonna scream until you shut up. So, but it all goes back to what we were basically talking about with law school and the bar and the exam. It's the same kind of issues that we're seeing. Let's make it even. Let's make it a fair playing field. Let's make it so that person that grew up in South Central LA with all the odds stacked against him, but he went to school, she went to school, they studied, they got good grades, they were able to get some scholarship money, they were able to go to college, they were able to do things. Let's make sure that happens to more and more people,
Yeah. I think too many people get into this, but I had to. Why don't they have to? Kind of mindset. If I had to run up a hill, why don't they have to run up a hill? And, I don't know how to answer that for most people because there's no way that, just like I'm out here trying to make everything fair, I still know at the end of the day, there's no way to make the world fair. It's not fair. There's no way to measure fairness across lives.
Well, let's also add into that. I'm sorry for the history.
We got a shitty history.
Of our country. I mean, we do, and it's really not even just our country. I mean,
it's not any different than the rest of the countries across the ocean. They all did the same thing.
They did the same thing. They were all doing the same thing since the beginning of time. Attila the Hun going from place to place and butchering. It's
Napoleon.
Yeah, it's some kind of quirky human thing that we follow some insane leaders. And we don't question it, and it just becomes a way of life. Okay, it was wrong. But that doesn't mean we can't move forward. I'm sorry, there's nothing that we can do about what already happened.
Yep.
What can we do to fix the problem today? That's my question. What do you want us to do to fix today's problem? Don't tell me to give you $1 gazillion for things that happened in the past. Yeah. What are we going to do to fix what we have going on today? Simple, and I think that if we were
people can't even agree with the problem, Mike. Like, I think that's a lot. Is it immigration? Is that the problem? But that's the problem. We can't find it. We can't find the problem. Everything's a problem.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I won't lie. A lot of people are specifically, that's one of the things we started this podcast with, is I don't see the numbers of people coming into law school like I did. Right. And I don't see that intensity that I used to see. The students who would be like, oh, I listened to the podcast on my run, or I did 100 MBAs. We're not seeing that. And I think we're not seeing that because people are afraid. They're afraid. What we've gone through is terrifying. I'm a 40-year-old woman, and I'm like, can my grandma come over here and tell these angry people to mind their own business? I don't necessarily like Joe Biden. I won't lie. He's not the greatest president in the world. But I was like, an old guy. Maybe he's going to tell everyone to mind their own business. And if you don't like it, don't look. The basics of things.
That's funny because I'm all about old guys. That's going to
see. We need that greatest generation to remind us. You don't have to pay attention to every little thing. Boy, you need to calm down a little bit. But we've got to figure out as a country, What's the problem? What is the problem? Instead of saying the problem is the man, the problem is the immigrants.
Well,
what's the problem?
The problem is that we're trying to find the problem, and there is no the problem. We got a multitude of freaking problems, and let's start there. Let's prioritize. Okay, what problem's the worst? Let's take care of that one. Let's face that one first, and then we'll take care of the next one, and then we'll take care of the one after that. But I really don't think that people are in the thought process of wanting to take care of problems right now.
No, because they're handling issues as they come at them, as the news, like we talked. Here's the Ukraine, deal with that. Here's Roe versus Wade, deal with that. Oh, they're coming for your immigration's coming for your job, or oh, this is coming. Like every day, they come for you. Mm-hmm. They want to scare you. Are you ready? Guess what today is? Today is
it's a fear
no
tactic.
Shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fear tactic, and they've been doing it for years. We've seen it ramp up over the years, the fear, out of candidates.
You can go back to probably 1300s and the kings, and that's how they controlled people through.
But they all end up with their heads lopped off. You would figure they get smarter.
Well, I mean that's a whole other fear in itself. But it's right now. It's just sad watching how people like us are so affected by what we're hearing and what we're seeing that we're basically turning on one another. And rather than just being full of happiness, full of some joy, having love in our heart for one another, we are finding ways to be critical of one another. And
to destroy each other.
Yeah. And yet, with that being said, I will say that those of us that are in the middle, those 90% of people that have family and kids, and all we want is our kids to be, healthy and happy and educated, we're still finding ways to be happy. I can go to the grocery store at any given day, walk down the aisle and see somebody, eyeball to eyeball and say hello, and you're going to get a, hi, how are you today? You're going to get people that are friendly. When you're friendly to other people, people will be friendly to you. And if there is any place that we need to start, that's where it's at. Start sharing that kindness that they so sorely want to take away from us. We need to start being considerate of one another. And with that, we'll see a lot of these problems not go away, but all of a sudden be able to talk about them and find solutions to them rather than just immediately to be on the defensive. As soon as somebody says Biden, other people get defensive. As soon as you say Pelosi, somebody's going to get defensive. It's, as soon as you say Trump, somebody's going to get defensive. And we need to stop doing that and start opening ourselves up and saying, okay, this is affecting how we are living. This is affecting how our children are living. This is going to affect us for a long time.
Yeah. Well, it kind of goes back to, and I think maybe COVID had a lot to do with it, is when there's a car accident, you don't ask the guy in the car whether he's a Republican or a Democrat. You run to the car and you help. If you see a child in the street that's going to get hit by a car, you have no duty to help that child. This is my law school part. You have no duty. But you run out there and you save that kid. You don't go, hey, kid, are your parents Republicans or Democrats? When we found out that Gabby Petito was missing, the question in the news reporters' mouths wasn't, is she a Republican or a Democrat? Because we can't cover that on this channel. No, people were like, let us help, because it isn't human to want to help each other, to want to better each other, right? If you ask somebody, where can I get directions for? Most people will be like, yeah, let me give you directions. It's a great store. Actually, there's a better place, right? People want to help people. But when we're locked in our houses and the only people we see are horrible people, the news people, right, giving us horrible things, we begin to forget that in our genes, in our being, in our spirits, however you want to see that, we want to help each other. Because if I'm successful, you're successful. If my neighbor's successful, I'm successful, right? If we help each other, then we move forward together. But we can't do it on our own. And we forgot about that. We forgot that, when we weren't doing like carnivals at elementary schools anymore for fall festivals, right? We forgot the other parents at the school. They're not all monsters. They're not creeping around finding ways to take your children's masks off.
Yeah, very few of them. Very few of them are bad people. That's one of the things that I've got to tell you is that what you're saying, if you want people to be successful, because if they're successful, you'll be. I look at it this way. I want people to be happy. I want people to be kind. I want people to have joy in their heart, because if they're happy, if they're kind and they have joy, it's going to make me happy. And that's all I want in my life, is to be happy. I want my life to be full of joy. That's all I'm looking for. Success comes and goes. Happiness can stay for a long, long time. And that's the only thing. If we would all just find ways to be content, to be happy, to share that happiness and to share that joy and spread that around, a lot of the bullshit just goes away. It gets to a point to where, you just want to scream from the roof. It's like, what was that one years ago, the show, I'm not taking this anymore or something, it's, from the rooftops, it's finally, we got to almost get to a point where we're telling everybody. I think that, in you and I are perfect example of someone that is far left. Me, I'm closer to the right, centralized, but have known each other for a number of years now. We get along famously, it's, it can happen. You don't have to have people in your life that think exactly like you do. I mean, that would be a boring place,
oh yeah.
To be surrounded by people that are just like-minded all the time. I want to be challenged. I want to have people, have different outlooks, different views, different, to be different people. And it's just, and I think that we have lost that spirit somehow, some way. And I think that to recapture it isn't that difficult. I think that to recapture it is just a mindset of accepting people from who they are. It's like we talk about immigration. I tell you, in California, where we have a huge immigration population, I have nothing but respect for people. I can't imagine. I struggle with the English language as it is, being, born and raised here. And it's not only my first language, it's my only language. And I still struggle with it. And I see people coming into this country uneducated, doing manual labor, and are bilingual. Hats off to them.
And if you think manual labor is easy, try to fix your own toilet next time, right? Yeah, it's not that easy.
Exactly right. Or dig your own front yard up, or go do, what? And hats off. Hats off to those fuckers, man. They're smart. That they can learn how to speak two different languages, It's it's not an easy feat. So when you look at what it is that we're actually talking about, I mean, have some compassion, Now, I'm not saying that we open up the borders and everybody comes in illegally. I think we can all agree on that. That's not right. That's not how the system done. Somebody said a few years ago, I don't mind, immigration. That's what we were built on. But come in the front door. It's not circumvent, not come around, come in the front door, and everybody will welcome you here. I mean, because it's not just, I mean, we focus on immigration being, south of our border. We don't think about immigration coming in from New Zealand, Australia, from Japan, from China, from Europe, from wherever. They're coming from all different directions. And that's what makes us who we are. And I want to, and if they're here, I want to see them succeed.
Well, that's the thing, Mike. Like, I am a pagan, and that means that I believe in a lot of different gods that are not in one pantheon. And everyone in my family believes in their own gods, right? Mm-hmm. But I was raised by Episcopalian and a Pentecostal and a Catholic. And I'll be honest with you, I tell people a lot, we need more God. Like and I don't believe in God per se, but I think people need more, like we need more Jesus. Like I agree with that. I don't raise my kids reading the Bible or doing things like that, but I use the teachings of the Bible to teach my children how to be good people.
Absolutely.
Treat other people the way you want to be treated.
Absolutely.
Right? The simple things we learned. And I think people need to get God again. And I think that's where we're missing. Jesus helped the poor and the hungry. He helped the downtrodden. He did what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to take the good things that we have, and if we have extra, help other people. Like, we're supposed to see the good in our lives and be thankful for the goodness that we have and the good things that we have, and want to spread that thanks to other people, to show other people, look, if you live a good life, you can have a good life, and I can help you because I have more than I need to have a good life. And instead of thinking about the world around us and how am I connected to all these things, what is my duty? Like here's God and the law combining in my head. Yep. What is my duty to the people around me? And do I owe a duty to them? Well, you're part of the society, and you have a higher calling to act as a higher being. Your job is not to go and harass the people around you or to make their lives harder. Your job isn't to assess whether they're moral or amoral. Your job isn't to go out there and punish the wrongdoer, unless you're a cop. That might be your job. But your job is to live the best life that you can live. Not the best life you can live for your neighbor. Not the best life you can live for the girls on Facebook or TikTok, but for you. For you as a human, to be the best human you can be. And people need to stop looking at Facebook. What does Facebook want me to be today? What am I supposed to be on TikTok? Today, am I a baker? Are we baking sourdough today? Or are we harassing homeless people? What's my job on Facebook today? No, your job is to be the best human you can be, to live a life that you will be proud of, that your children will be proud of, to know that what you did with your time was worth your time. And we need to focus on that again. Focus on how can you help your neighbor, or how can you even acknowledge the good things in your life? Because right now a lot of people aren't acknowledging, like, hey, I live in a giant house. It is giant. It is so giant I don't clean it. I hate cleaning it. Like that is way more than somebody else has. So what should I do with all of that? I take my chicken eggs and I give them to my neighbors to apologize for my loud chickens, right? I know they're obnoxious and I'm sorry, but have some eggs for putting up with them because I know they're loud, right? I acknowledge that because I want to be the best human I can be. And that means I know when my own behavior or something I have done might affect someone else. So I do something nice to tell them thank you. I teach my children, be nice to people, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated. Don't steal. Don't lie.
Well, you go back to,
be good people. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all.
Well, you go back to what you were first saying and talking about, and that is the Bible. The Bible is about teachings. It's about I can't believe that my phone. I normally shut it off. It's going off. The Bible is about teachings, That's what it is. It's storytelling. It's telling you how to be a good person. It's telling you the path to be a good person. It's telling you how to share. It's telling you how to be happy. It's telling you, and it's an amazing, whether, like you say, whether you're pagan, whether you're atheist, whether you're Christian, it's a book for everybody, because it's just talking to you about being a decent human being. And you talk about Jesus. I mean, the teachings of Jesus are all about turning the other cheek, seeing the good in people, forgiveness, helpful. Just, you go on. I mean, I love years, not that many years ago, but some years ago, it was, what would Jesus do? I mean, it's an
WWJD.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I mean, it is the truest question that when you are in doubt, and you're probably not going to want to hear it, and you're probably, really going to struggle to follow it, because if you're in that situation, probably the last thing you want to hear is, what would Jesus do? Because it's going to be something probably totally different than what you're contemplating on doing. But it's
difficult.
Or difficult, yeah. But you know what? It's the right thing. It's the kind thing. It's the thing that we need to do, and we need to share, and we need to be open about. And whether we do it in a religious content or whether we do it in a human content, it doesn't make any difference. Right is right, wrong's wrong. And until we get down to that very basic simplicity, and we all know right is right, and we all know wrong is wrong. And there are a lot of people that choose to do the wrong. That's okay. Going to need those people too, but there are consequences for those actions.
Yes.
And when you serve those consequences, you can't have society coming back and say, well, he didn't mean to do that. And, or he was raised wrong, or he was, his rights were suppressed, or I'm sorry, wrong is wrong. And on the other side, when right is right, and you're kind and you're giving and life turns out well for you because of it, and even if it doesn't, because there's no guarantee, you can be the nicest person in the world. It's not a guarantee that your life is going to be beautiful because of it. But you know what? You're going to have a clean heart. To me, that's a lot. So it's going back. It's just going back to some basics of life. And I think that, where you were talking about in law and in law school and being an attorney is doing it for the right reasons. I mean, the person that I know that's going through law school is doing it because she wants to do the right thing for people. She wants to help people, whether it's in the criminal system or whether it's, for children, whatever that it is, that's her heart. And I think that more people get into it. It's like more people go into medicine. They may get skewed in their way of thinking as time goes on, but people go into the medical profession, because they want to help people. Somewhere along the line, maybe, they get off track or so. I don't know. It happens because, it's a hard profession. But whether it's medical field, whether it's law, whether it's business, doesn't make any difference what it is. Go into it with the idea that you're doing it for the right reason. So. Yeah.
No, I always tell people, because I have so many genetic health problems. I go get infusions every other Monday. I have so many. And I always tell people, hey, we're all dealt a deck of cards. It's not the cards you get, it's how you play them.
Yeah.
And we don't all get a fair shake. We don't. And that's 100% true. And we know that. Some people are born into poverty. Some people don't have mothers they're born in trash cans. But we all get a deck of cards, and it's how you play it. What are you going to do with that? And what do you, and we go, well, they're just going to go sell drugs, or they're going to do drugs, or blah, 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 blah. But you know what? If you focused on you and being the best individual you could be, then you would make the world around you better. Just by being you as a person that wanted to be a good person. And that has a ripple effect in the water. And that will affect, it's the butterfly effect theory, right? One good deed today can have so many effects down the road. You have no idea how many people it can touch. Yep. So if we all stopped focusing on everybody else and our neighbors, we've worked on being the best we can be, then we would see that start to ripple out. And then all those people that have less or don't have the options, the world becomes better. And then there are options for those people.
Right.
Well,
also too, when you're blessed and you do have a good life, and you are purposeful about your good life, and you go out of your way to be a kind, helpful person, it opens up the door for mentoring. It opens up the door to be a leader. It opens up the door to help people around you that maybe look up to you, and maybe you have something that you can share with them. That's all a part of what we do. That's all part of the whole village mentality of raising children. Mm-hmm. We can't do it all by ourselves. It takes people on the outside. It takes people of good character to help you raise your family, or help raise my family. And it's the same thing that goes true, going back now into what you do with your bar studies and with your tutoring and the different things. You're not doing it to make money. You're not doing it to, create this big business. You could, you can, you don't have to do everything for free, but you've also got an opportunity to help those people that can't afford a $6,000 3-month program.
Yeah. And you know what I tell them, Mike? I say, hey, when you're a big fancy attorney, remember me.
Yeah.
Just remember me. That's it. Just remember me. That's it. That's all I care about.
Write me a check so I can help others.
Yeah, when you get to the end and you're rich and famous and whatever you get to, just remember the little people. Yeah, that's but that should whatever if you're going into something, you should be. And I know I sound like a Pollyanna, and I have a daughter named Pollyanna, so you can judge me there. But go into things not expecting to get anything back out of it, but just to help.
Best way.
That's the only way. Do your part.
Yeah, don't ever do something. If you're doing something kind to get something out of it, you're not doing something kind.
Yes.
You're doing something with a motive. And there's a big difference, But to do something kind means you're just doing it with no regard for any type of a return on your time or your effort. Mm-hmm. So,
more people should be okay with that. We should celebrate that, and we don't celebrate that enough. And we should. We don't. I think that's maybe we quit doing the pay it forward and the WWJD thing, and we quit giving positive feedback to the good things, and we started giving negative feedback to the negative things. Well, we need to flip it on its head and go back to positive feedback for positive things and ignore the rest of it.
I think that there's a movement going towards that. It's going slow. It's going uphill. It's pushing against a lot of resentment. But I think that there's a movement because more and more people that I talk to about it are 100%.
We're all tired and old.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? Before we get kind of kicked off again, we'll wrap this one up, and I promise you we're going to do it again when we have a little bit better situation and Brian's got our technical issues kind of figured out. But this is a great podcast. I've really, really enjoyed it. I think everybody's going to enjoy listening to it. You brought a lot of insight in and a lot of passion into it. Okay. It's been amazing. It's been really good. So again, to close it up, how do people get in touch with you? People that are in law school, people that need a little bit of help, need some assistance, I know that you have some good programs. How do people get in touch with you?
Well, you can email, and we have a group email. So you email info, so that's info, at LAW Institute.org. So it's LALawInstitute.org. And that email will go to me. And if I don't answer it immediately, then there's another attorney who's barred who will answer it and let me know, because we're such a small group. And her and I talk all the time. And so if I don't get it immediately, she'll tell me it came.
Perfect. So with all that, thank you. Really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
I
was concerned, but you played nice. So.